Greetings. Today we continue part 3 of God's waiting grace from 1 Peter chapter 3 verses 20 through 22. The same word corrupt was used by God to convey to Moses the sin of Aaron and the people in the making of the golden calf idol recorded in the book of Exodus chapter 32. In verse 7 it says, "And the Lord said unto Moses, Go, get thee down, for thy people which thou broughtest out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed thereunto, and said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which have brought thee up out of the land of Egypt." Now stop and think with me for one moment. God's assessment of that pre-flood generation was that they were completely corrupted, except for a very small remnant which he found in Noah and his family. Why did God create Adam? The very name means a human being in his image to begin with. He created man as a triune being in his own image, having a body, a mind, and an undying spirit. God created man as the crowning jewel of his creation to fellowship together with him. God wanted to be their God. They wanted to be his people, his sheep, his children. That's what he wanted for us to desire him to be our shepherd. God had this fellowship with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden until they sinned against him. God delivered the first gospel message personally in the book of Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15. In Noah's day, this preacher of righteousness proclaimed the truth concerning sin, righteousness, and judgment to come for some 120 years before the flood of God's judgment came and swept them all away. Matthew 24:39 says that, "And knew not until the flood came and took them all away, so also shall the coming of the Son of Man be." Today we preach righteousness, sin, righteousness, and judgment to come. And men refuse to accept that message. But one day, just like that flood, the flood of God's judgment will come to take them away. 1 Peter 3:21 literally says, "In which thing also, an antitype baptism, it is now saving us, not a laying aside of the filth of the flesh, but an answer, a response of a good conscience with respect to the God by agency of a resurrection of Jesus Christ." For many years I have referenced this verse in preaching the gospel as the biblical definition of salvation. In fact, that it teaches the opposite of what many tried to have it say to support their baptismal regeneration heresies. It very plainly states that baptism does not save a person then or now. It says that baptism is not a type of salvation, rather that it is an antitype of salvation. I believe that most of you understand that Hebrews teaches that the Old Testament sacrifices did not take away sin. They were types or pictures of the coming Lamb of God who would come and take away the sin of the world. So let me state something that should be obvious to anyone who has read the entire account of the flood in the book of Genesis. Everyone upon the face of the earth passed through the waters of God's judgment. And yet it is equally obvious that everyone in the water outside of the ark perished in the flood of God's judgment, and only the 8 souls who sought refuge in the ark before passing through the waters were saved. If we would take the simple comparison of then and now as stated, then we would understand that one must be in the ark of God's safety, that's Jesus Christ, today, before passing through the coming flood of God's judgment on the coming judgment day. Then we find a simple clarification, which the King James translators placed. They didn't place the phrase in it, but they placed the parenthesis around it concerning baptism, where it says very plainly, and I quote, "Baptism is not the putting away of the filth of the flesh," end quote. That is a negative definition of what baptism is.